joining me now for his first American TV interview on behalf of United 24 and the Ukrainian government is Luke Skywalker himself, Mr. Mark Hamill. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Let me start by asking the obvious question. Tell our viewers, what is the Army of Drones? What is your role in it? What are you trying to achieve? It sounds like the name of a Star Wars prequel, but it's not, is it? It's much more serious than that.
No, it's not the Army of Droids. It's the Army of Drones. And I was really surprised to be contacted by President Zelensky. I assume, I didn't ask why. I mean, I think they saw my support for Ukraine on my Twitter feed. But, you know, it's I'm not used to being contacted by world leaders. You know, I'm a court jester. I'm a non-essential worker. I do cartoon voices and TV and movies. So I was honored to be contacted by him. And basically, what they were wanting me to do was become a so-called ambassador, which is a glorified word for representative of their army of drones, because drones define war outcomes. They're essential for Ukraine to protect their border, to protect their citizens, and
yes,
that's what I hope people will do. Over 115 countries have donated to various causes, not just yes.
We know that the president wants these drones to kind of maintain air surveillance. We know that Russian air dominance was a problem at the start of the war. We know that there's a very long border between Ukraine and Russia that needs monitoring. But are all these drones non-lethal drones, lethal drones, a mix of drones?
I think it's a mix. Obviously, the Russians have many, many more drones than the Ukraine does, and they are, you know, used to bomb civilians and so forth. But you know, the one thing I wanted to mention too, if you have, you know, you can donate money, but if you have an actual drone, you could donate that or dronate that, as they say. And I just wanted to mention, if you go to u.24.gov.ua/dronation, DRONATION, it'll bring you to a link where it's very easy to donate. And this
is United 24, who you are
United
working
24.
With. What attracted you? Mark, what attracted you to this role? Why did you want to do it? And why do you think Ukraine has captured the imagination and support of the American people like no other foreign conflict or country that I can think of in living memory?
Well, we've never seen a country unilaterally invaded. I mean, in my lifetime, I guess it goes back to World War II, but it's the classic, you know, David versus Goliath. You know, everyone expected Ukraine to just immediately surrender to this invading force. And I think to see them fight back with such courage, it's been an inspiration to see. I first became aware of President Zelensky during the first impeachment trial. So I did a little research on him because I found him a fascinating character. And nothing has diminished my admiration, not only for his leadership, but for the way the Ukrainian people have banded together and, you know, reacted so heroically. I mean, obviously, they're doing very well, but it's not over till it's over.
And that's very true. And we're just showing some pictures there on screen a moment ago of President Zelensky. Talk about President Zelensky. What was meeting him like, the leader of the resistance? What do you make of him?
Well, he's a man of the people. He came from, I mean, obviously I relate to him because he started out as an actor, but to see him lead his country and you know, I spoke to his administration first. I wasn't expecting a meeting with him. And then when he asked to meet with me, there he was in his, you know, green khaki T-shirt. I was surprised he spoke to me as long as he did. I thought, my gosh, this is a man that has a lot on his agenda, but he took the time, and who knows? I mean, maybe he's just a Star Wars fan. like you.
Well, I know you've mentioned that President Zelensky referenced the Star Wars movies when you met and called Russia the evil empire. Is that a view
Yes.
you share? Because it was a view that Ronald Reagan shared back in the 80s when Star Wars was at its peak, to talk about the Star Wars missile defense and the evil empire. Today's Republicans, though, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Matt Gaetzes, the Donald Trumps, they don't really share that view. They don't really want us to be funding or supporting Ukraine. They don't think Russia is that bad. Donald Trump, Mark, just said yesterday that Joe Biden almost forced Putin to invade Ukraine by taunting him with dumb rhetoric. That's Trump's words. What do you make of what is your view of Russia, and what do you make of the GOP's view of Russia?
Well, someone asked me in an interview if the actors in Star Wars supported Ukraine, and I said, well, I haven't spoken to them personally, but who would support Russia? And then I thought, oh yeah, Fox News, OAN, Newsmax. It's really, really strange. I don't get it. But we live in the fact-based community. Unfortunately, when you have people that believe the election was stolen based on no evidence, you're entitled to your own facts. You're entitled to your own opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. And that's the thing that I think is that the former president is, the damage will last for years and years, because he's convinced his supporters to believe that we don't have free and fair election, despite no evidence whatsoever. And that's going to last for a long time to come. And it is really scary because, we have a coalition now.
Sorry, go on.
Yes?
Finish your point, sorry.
I was just saying that we have an obligation as Democrats, independents, and fact-based Republicans. I mean, he united the most divisive president in our lifetime. Oddly enough, has united me with so many Republicans that still are in the fact-based reality. I could list them all, but it takes too long. So there's more of us than there are of them. But what we have to do is get out and vote. There's no excuse for not voting. Now, I voted all my life. I've never missed an election. That's just the way I am. But I was shocked by how many of my friends thought, my vote doesn't matter. And that's the problem. If we all get out and vote, we will prevail.
So you're clearly very political. That's how you and I found each other on Twitter, with our political tweets.
Right.
Just yesterday, you mocked Herschel Walker in Georgia on Twitter, saying even if he turns up to a debate with Raphael Warnock, Warnock will still be addressing an empty podium. Have you always been politically engaged, politically passionate?
Well, I have been, but I'm not publicly. In other words, I've always voted, as I said. No one's ever asked for my help until Michael Dukakis asked me to go out on the campaign trail. It was in the last month or so, so he was in a downward spiral for sure. But what happened was that when I got on Twitter, I think your personality comes out and your likes and dislikes, because I'm not an activist, I'm not a pundit. But, I'm just an American citizen who has an opinion. So I think that comes out. And then, like I say, we've never seen the likes of what happened. If you wrote up a screenplay or a novel based on the last 6 years of our political history and then went back in a time machine 10 years, you wouldn't be able to sell it because nobody would believe it. Yeah. These are extraordinary times, and they require extraordinary measures.
They are indeed. You couldn't make this stuff up. One last question I have to ask, Mark, before I let you go. It's a Star Wars question from a fanboy.
Yes.
What was it like to be back on screen as Luke Skywalker? Well, kind of back on screen, aided by CGI, in the TV series The Mandalorian on Disney Plus after all those years? I mean, I literally, like many, whooped out loud when you arrived in that fight scene in the season 2 finale.
Well, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni invited me over to watch some footage. They said they wanted my opinion. I thought, well, that's unusual. No one has done that before when it came to Star Wars, certainly not in the sequel. So I went over, they showed me the footage, and then they proposed this idea, which I was gobsmacked, as you British are fond of saying, because, the de-aging process and the whole thing. I mean, I never thought I'd go back and play that part again. But one thing I think that's so advantageous for the short form storytelling that you see on shows like Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and all the rest of them is they don't have to be giant special effects extravaganza. They don't have to be epic in scope. They can tell smaller stories, character-driven stories that really resonate with the audience. And it's sort of going back to the idea that George had, which they were, he was very influenced by the spaghetti Western, the Sergio Leone Westerns. And like I say, they are beautifully done. And I'm, even though I'm not a participant, I will always be a Star Wars fan. I told people, if I didn't get that part, I would have been the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, no matter who played Luke. That's just my thing. Carrie and Harrison were not as enthused.
But you played Luke, Mark. You played Luke, and that's why we're so excited that you came on the show tonight to talk Ukraine, the GOP, and Star Wars. We are sadly out of time, but I appreciate you joining me. Mark Hamill.
Thanks so much for having me, Maddie. Thanks so much.